I'm here to support the amendments to the birth-tested marriages legislation currently before the State Parliament behind me. This is an important amendment for me because it's going to remove the requirement to have unnecessary and invasive and dangerous surgical operation to change the gender on your birth certificate. It's very important to me because I'm a transgender person and I live in my identity as female and my birth certificate says male, and I can't get it changed unless I have what is essentially sterilising surgery. Now, for some transgender people, they want that surgery, need that surgery, and they should get that surgery absolutely, and they can change their birth certificates. But for others of us who don't want it, don't need it, or can't have it for medical or financial reasons, it is a real bind to be stuck with a primary identity document which declares you're a gender other than the one that you're presenting as. I know that 12 agencies of the United Nations in 2014 urged all member states to remove such a requirement to have surgery before changing the gender on their identity document, and they called it coercive sterilisation, and that's how I view it.
I'm here because I'm the CEO of Drummond Street Services, but I'm also a member of the LGBTI community. And I know that the luxury of having your identity matching who you are on your birth certificate is one of the fundamental pieces of documentation is so important. And this is a very simple piece of legislation that can mean so much to our transgender, diverse and non-binary community, that it matches who they are.
I'm here today to show support for all the transgender people. I come from RMIT and we really believe in supporting our students who are transgender and that they have the right to be who they are and for them to proclaim who they are and for life to be easier for them, because they sometimes, especially with bureaucracy, get such a hard time and get misgendered, and that's just an awful experience.
So I'm here to support as a trans person, whawhawhine myself. It's so important to resolve these issues or challenge these issues so that our community is safe, that they're allowed to be who they are, and that legally that they feel entitled to be treated as equals as everybody else. Yes, it is important to me. It's been something personal for me. It's just like the journey that I've been through in trying to prove myself, the validation of my own gender. And so it's almost the blueprint for future generations and how we can make it safe and easier for the next group of young people, the next group of trans and gender diverse community that comes after us.
I'm here to support legislative amendment for the birth-tested marriages campaign so that trans people can have their nominated gender on their birth certificates. So important. It is so important for autonomy, for consent and self-determination.
I'm here today because trans people face so many barriers in our society. We face discrimination, we face rejection from our friends and our families, we face employment and housing discrimination, and we face legislative discrimination. Trans people need ID that reflects who we really are. We need ID that has non-binary options. We need options for trans kids and trans young people to be able to change their ID at all. And so I'm here today to send a strong message to Parliament and to all my trans friends that we're standing together to make sure this legislation passes.
So I'm here with my mum. She doesn't want to be on the camera, but I'm here with my mum to support the birth certificate reform. I'm trans myself, so I'm here to support my community, and yeah, this is very important for me because this is such a big thing, and people will go through like discrimination just because of something on their birth certificate. For example, I still am male and have my dead name on my birth certificate, and that's still in the backlog of the school that I just joined, and that kind of will never be removed. So that's really unfair, and it's very, and it can be very triggering for some people.
I'm here today to gather with my trans and gender diverse siblings in support of the birth certificate legislation reforms, which are really super important. It's really important that our community has a document that enables them to have identification, that they don't have to place themselves in danger or potential danger every time they have to produce that document. For me personally, I was born in New South Wales, so this reform doesn't have a direct impact on me initially, but it does also enable me, as someone who is from a state that doesn't have legislation similar, to be able to gain not a birth certificate document, but a similar document that will be able to give me accurate identification. So I'll be able to use that in place of that birth certificate, is my understanding. I guess we'll have to see how the legislation comes out in the end, but looking at the proposed legislation, that looks like that's a really positive benefit, I think, for people that have moved to Victoria and weren't born here and aren't in a position to be able to access that document in their own state. So for me, whilst it's not like I can't go and change my Victorian birth certificate because I don't have one, but I can still gain some identification documents. So I think it's a really important reform, and it's a really positive thing that the Victorian Government have recognised that that's an issue for our community as well as just birth certificates.
I'm here today because we need to reform Victoria's birth certificate laws so they're fair and equitable for all people, cisgender, trans and gender diverse, because currently people are not being treated with equality and equity. The laws that are beginning to be debated today will change that for the better. It is utterly important for me, both personally, but most importantly for all the trans and gender diverse people here today who just want to be able to, for example, go into a post office to do their working with children's check and not out themselves, for people, younger people who can't change their birth certificate at all and want to get a holiday job without outing themselves, and so parents don't have to deal with the stress of their young trans and gender diverse people having to constantly go, why can't I have a birth certificate that's fair? So it's important for me and all my community and all my, we'll say, family of choice, that I hugely appreciate. Gosh, it's a huge turnout today. There's a great range of allies here, which is so fantastic. Thank you to all the people, the cisgender people, who have turned up and shown their support. It's a great range of people. To people watching this in the next, say, week or two, Transgender Victoria and myself are always happy to have a respectful conversation about trans issues. But if you call us rude names, make up exaggerations or lies, then sorry, no. And we just ask people to listen to the truth and listen carefully.
I really hope this bill goes through. People should be able to name themselves what they want to be named, and for their rights to be recognised, and for them not to be persecuted or to get a hard time. Yeah.
Be a trans ally, support trans people, support gender diverse people, support non-binary people.
Trans advocates like me and like other young people have been fighting for this for so long. We've had this bill come up to Parliament before and it failed by one vote. So we need allies to step up. Contact your MP, tell them you support this bill, tell them you're watching to see whether they support this bill. Tell them that when they talk about trans and gender diverse people, they better be careful about the language they use and the rhetoric they spread, because at the next election we will have a long memory.
Just get it done, will you, for the love of God or anyone.